Boom. Nice, nice. All right. Live stream is up and running. Shit. My fault. I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah, I got my live stream up and running. All right. So, everybody tune in. Today I have been fortunate enough to have EA as my second special guest. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. I went ahead and put a link to his Odyssey. He's on Odyssey now instead of YouTube, and I don't give two shits if YouTube has a problem with me posting any of his content up there. They can suck it. So.
You guys do that? That's your voices coming from the temple.
Yep, that's me.
All right, great to.
I was on mute. I didn't realize it, but yeah, I got the thing, and I just said like, yeah, I got the live stream up and running. And I just saying like how I put a link to your Odyssey in the description, and I don't care if YouTube has a problem with me posting this up there. I'm gonna post what I want.
Hell yeah. No, that's the only way to live life, man. That's the only way to do it. So cool. I'm gonna grab my coffee out of the kitchen. I'll be right back, and then I'm good to go.
Yeah, take time.
Sure. All right, I'm good whenever you are.
All right, perfect. All right. So everyone who's tuning in, we're gonna be watching this later. I have this is I'd like to have more of these, but this is basically a live stream of right hand meets left hand path, and now I don't know if you remember there was a few years ago when I was watching you on a live on Odyssey, and I said I think that the two paths can learn from each other, right?
Hmm.
And I decided, okay, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to actually start reading books and actually learn and say what can I learn and how can I myself actually like wait, is there something I can teach? Because my Discord that I've built is based on everything that's like, okay, this works. This maybe I'm not too sure about. So it's a collection. But within and I'll let you know, I actually have been on the blog forum for like almost 10 years. Actually, how I made the Discord is there's a section on there that I actually maybe I can not my camera, but I'll turn my screen on and see. Hopefully, it won't lag too much. But I had actually practiced um, doing these type of scans for people, and I got better and better and better at it. And it kind of like I unintentionally was growing, but also I was people were more folks were coming to me, and it was really cool because I was thinking to myself like, oh, cool, I'm not crazy. This is actually something I'm actually capable of doing, and I was really excited about that. And I started to learn more and more and pushing the boundaries, and now I'm at that point where when I scan people, I not only can see like where they are energetically, I can see connections they have, like deities or spirits or connections they have with other people. And it was a lot of this was like me crossing boundaries, like when I accidentally contacted Lilith, and I learned things from her, and then even Lucifer, and then recently Azazel. I was like, oh crap, I'm learning these things, and it's like what I've learned has really broken through this idea, and I've come to this conclusion that ascent is just the goal. The left hand path, right hand path is irrelevant. Ascent is just the goal.
Yeah. I had this was back when I was 22 years old. I moved up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, go move up with some Satanists actually, and go just start. I kind of felt like I knew I was starting something in my life. I was starting a path of living for magic, living for ascent.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was up there, I did this. I started getting into Enochian magic, and I did an evocation of the Aeon of Ra. And one of the big things that he laid on me is he said all paths lead to the same palace,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really big because I think at that point I was really stuck specifically on ceremonial kind of kabbalistic hermetic magic,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, you need to expand yourself quite a bit because every path leads to the same palace, and so yeah, we're all going for the exact same goal, and even like the insights, it's crazy the insights that like Satan or Lucifer gives you. You can see echoed in the teachings of Rumi, or the teachings of Jesus or Buddha. That for some reason it seems like different people maybe need to hear it from a different messenger, that we won't, because I know like that maybe there's certain messengers I just wouldn't accept that message from. I don't know though. It's an interesting thing because I do think that what your intention is of bringing these paths together is great, or at least finding common ground, because there is really no separation. There really isn't. It's just a matter of perceived separation.
Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you. I spoke a lot with there was one of the old moderators on the forum, Lady Ava, and
Oh yeah.
she she was very insightful because we both would talk about like these experiences, like because I'll confess, like when I was younger, I was like maybe 12. I saw like my first spirit, and I had no idea what it was because I thought it was just like this light, this red light that moved around and vanished. And throughout my teenage years, just saw those, and I had no idea what they were. Look them up. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And my anxiety, my social anxiety, caused me to get into meditation. Of course, being raised with my hellfire brimstone Catholic mom, she's like, no, meditation is wrong, because I tried, like, what if I could, control my mind and relax? And she was like, no, it invites demons. And that was kind of like the first cross. I was like, that actually isn't true. I've learned to control my anxiety through breath meditation. Even though I didn't realize at the time what I was doing, I learned that, and it actually kind of enhanced my ability to focus. And but even with that, as I tried to go through and to different groups and who were like, love and light kind of thing, and I learned they were very negative, which was strange to me. And I always wondered, am I doing something wrong? I don't mean to be offensive or rude, but I was so confused because I would ask.
In what ways were they negative?
Okay, so I was really good. I'll give you an example. I was really good with math and science. So what I did was I was like 19, and I created this questionnaire of trying to understand a scientific process of how, like, when you use your abilities, do you use a sense? Do you have a mental image? Do you feel something? Is there a sensation? And I kind of just asked people to say, like, hey, here are some basic tests you can find online. Please let me know what your score is. And I think some people got offended because they had a really poor score. And me, it was just the process. It was just learning. I didn't think of it as I was showing you up, or I'm proving you wrong. But I think a lot of people felt that way, and it was just, no, please don't misunderstand. I'm just I love all this stuff and I want to learn. But because even when I was learning psychology, the ESP section is like a pseudo psychology. They say it was really difficult, and I would move from like, I guess form to form, and I would be on my best behavior, but I would be so rejected, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? I couldn't understand, and it turned me off. But
a similar thing that I've had with just about every left hand path organization that I've joined is the people at the top seem to have the least gifts, and as soon as you start displaying gifts, there's a jealousy that hits in. I've been told by so many mentors that what I'm doing is impossible. I'm like, yeah, I summoned a Zazel, and this happened. They're like, oh, that can't happen. One mentor only used a pendulum. He couldn't actually receive anything intuitively or anything like that. So his whole thought is that if you're getting it not in a pendulum, you must just be making this up. And and then the social experiment you did there is really interesting though, because gosh, I think I would like to look at that. If I were to do these tests, I would like to look at it and actually see the scores and see, okay, these are the areas that I can improve in. I now see where I've got holes in my ship that I can fill in. But for people to get offended by it and instantly reject it, gosh, there's a whole lot of ego built into it that they've attached a whole lot of their own significance to pretend. I'm going to say it, a pretend magical stasis or status.
yeah,
Did you feel like the tests were accurate? Like, did you feel like the people who were not doing well on the tests that you could kind of, if you scan them, that you could kind of determine that they're really not all that gifted?
so here's the thing. This was back, the test I created was back when I was like 19, way before I had ever learned scan or developed scanning. The scanning came kind of accidental. I think I was like I had just started college, and life was kind of fell apart, and then I discovered there's a lady, she told me about Robert Bruce, right? and I got his book Energy Work, and I was like, oh, dude, this is so cool. I like this. It's very simple, and you know, learning from him, and he mentioned you, but it was
Mm.
so as I developed the practice his method, that's when that kind of ability came. So it's like, if I can do this to myself, and I was kind of like, learning to project the energy out and pulling it back in, and it's like, I wonder if I can do this to other people. And it was literally just a, hey, I think I can. Let me try. And but my
I'm going to keep interrupting you if you don't mind. What do you think is behind? Because there's something because I've tapped into the same thing, and there have you found some sort of trick to be able to trust yourself enough to be able to like spit out? Because I think a lot of people might risk, they'll pass by somebody or shake somebody's hand and get a feeling about them. That's one thing, but to be able to spit that out, that takes a certain amount of self-trust and courage. Do you feel like again, did you have any trick to be able to tell yourself that this is okay to play with?
um so when I did suffer from like a lot of wondering if I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm crazy or not, but oh, that was always a thing because like dude, I would see stuff, I would hear voices, and I was like, oh my god, am I insane? And I didn't know what to tell people, and I could people, when I look in this person's eyes, I could immediately tell if they were lying to me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But there, a lot of it was not wanting to. Some of it was like not just, I didn't want to believe I was being lied to, I guess. And now in this case, um, practicing with members on the forums did help because as I got more feedback, I was like, oh, okay, so I'm not just making stuff up. They're actually giving me proper feedback. And one I did recently, I did a live demonstration. Of course, I'll have like I did it during Halloween with a mask on because I don't want people to see my face. Um, but I had four different people tell me like they could literally feel my energy moving through their body,
Mm.
and that was news to me. I had never heard that before. So it was the feedback I got from people that confirmed that I was being accurate, and that
Yeah.
helped with my now as far as like the kind of giving me myself permission. um I kind of had this thought in my mind, and Robert Bruce kind of got this, kind of instilled this a little bit, where he said, "You don't need to ask people's permission to heal them." And I'm like, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense." So when people have like these rules of like, what is it, like the threefold, sevenfold, tenfold, something or other, where it's like you got to ask people's permission. And I thought to myself, if I, it was kind of like, if I have to ask your permission, or if I can, and I was like, what if I could just do it and you don't even know? If they didn't know I was doing it, like, do I really need your permission? I know it sounds like a dick thing to say, but it was just, you know, if you don't know, I can kind of get away with it, and I'm not really hurting you. But I was like, it's a really gray zone. I know it's kind of, I get it.
No, so I'm with you on that. If I want to help somebody, and with healing, I don't do. I mean, I'll do healing from that time to time, but more than that, like if I see that I've got a friend that needs a job, I'm gonna do a ritual, and he gets a job the next day. If I tell him about it, he's gonna fuck up the interview. He's gonna he might not go. He might get all weird in his head about it. If I don't tell him about it, he has no idea. He just does his natural thing, and he's being guided by the magic that I've done, and then he gets the job. And so a lot of times it's better to not tell the person. And then I don't think there's the whole karma thing is really built around attachment. And so if you've become attached to, well, and here's the bitch of it. If you become attached to being a healer and you have to heal everybody, that's a bad karma too. If you're able to just do it as you want to and not do it as you don't want to, I think that's the where to be.
I did learn that the hard way, and this kind of brings me to a point that where I have learned something very interesting, and I've learned a lot of this watching, going on to like the Become a Living God and watching you. Is I did grow up with the the virtuous tendency to be charitable, but at the same time, anything in excess is a vice. So you can be overly charitable. You can be, if you're under charitable, you're greedy. If you're over charitable, like you can't help people if you have nothing to help them with. And I had to learn that the hard way. And unfortunately, my think is people, right hand path and more Christians will have this notion that if we have to be overly virtuous, but it's like, no, you need to have a balance. There's a balance there, because what I learned is that there's nothing wrong with being quote unquote selfish. You know, if you're applying it in a proper way, you can't. Not being able to help everybody doesn't mean you're refusing to. It means it's outside your ability, and sometimes you have to let people heal themselves. And I learned this the hard way. It was difficult because my dad had Crohn's disease for like, oh goodness, almost 20 years. Like back in 2006, he developed it, and it was hard on him. And you know, it's like I kept trying to like say, hey, show him all these different things like diet, exercise, you know, and it wasn't until he did it himself. And it's like, that's the thing I needed to learn. And it was funny, the first time I got my palm read, the lady she read me like a book, and she said like, you're worried about your dad. Like, yeah, she said like, look, I'll give you free advice. You can't help him, you know, you're going to develop as a great healer, but he's got to do it himself, and you got to learn that. And her down-to-earth practical advice taught me so much, and I realized that, you know, you can be so without an ego that you develop an ego, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Oh, not having an ego is one of the biggest ego trips in the world. Yeah, for sure. You know, this is making me think actually of my ex-girlfriend. We were together for like 8 years, and about 3 years before we split up, she started coming home just about every day complaining about work, complaining about the drive, complaining about the weather. Everything was a complaint. So I started using magic just to, you know, I think it was Tuku from the Necronomicon I called to just heal her depression. And it wasn't even depression. She was actually choosing to be miserable. And so after like a year of her just complaining almost every day, specifically about work, I was like, you know what? I make enough money. Why don't you quit your job? I'm going to pay you a full-time salary to stop complaining. Like, if you want to help me with shipping, you want to help me with stuff, I'm seriously going to pay you to shut up.
I love it.
And
I love it.
yeah. And now our relationship just got so much worse. So I got hold of one of my mentors, one of my gurus, and I was like, well, I don't know what else to do. And he goes, well, what have you done already? And I'm like, well, you know, I did ritual for her. I've you know, I'm paying her salary. I've done everything. He goes, okay, so she's experiencing pain, extreme pain. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to buy her pain away. You're trying to see how many dollars you can throw at her pain, or how many rituals you can throw to take her pain away. And he goes, you know, that's not fair for you or for her. It's not on you to take her pain away. She needs that pain. He goes, look at your life and all the things that you've learned from your own pain. You're robbing her of that ability to learn from her pain. If she's not a good person to be around, don't be around her, but don't try to take her pain away. And so like with what you're telling me about your dad, there's kind of something similar of like, most of the time we've got to have the experiences we're having in order to come through it and to gather something from it. You know, if you go taking that away from everybody, this is, and honestly, I think this is the big flaw in the personality of Jesus, that he's bent on saving everybody, and it's like, well, good God, most people just don't want what you have to offer, and even if they did, is that fair for a person not to have to experience their own consequences? I don't think so.
Yeah, I will say so. I find this ironic. Like most of my closest friends. I have a buddy in Poland, and then a friend of mine. We do fencing, and she's getting but they're both Luciferian. I think one is Levian. I think one is a one is a atheist Luciferian. The other one is a does magic Luciferian. But we will actually sit down and we will talk about everything, and it's like we can actually have this kind of like mutual respect for each other. It's like, yeah, I see what you're saying. You can make a good point. And uh, um, you know, I get that. I understand that idea of, and this is this is kind of an interesting thing because when I kind of look, who's that guy? Was it Moog or he's a dude on YouTuber, and makes a lot of videos, and he's talked about Jesus. He said that Jesus and Lucifer were like the same person at one point. I'm trying to remember what his name is. I don't know if it's Moog or something. But
I think I came across that video though. I actually had a bunch of Luciferians and Satanists that I kind of meet with on a regular basis to just do work together, and we started sharing that around. We're like, look at this shit! Whoa! There is some, so if you just break it down academically, there are a lot of links that you could say link Jesus and Satan. But when you talk to Jesus and you talk to Satan or face to face, or Lucifer, either one, that you are witnessing very different personalities. That's one of the crazy things actually about when we start getting into the personalities of the spirit world. It's a crazy thing because they all do have very unique, different personalities, and it's impossible. Because people will be like, oh yeah, Azazel, because Azazel and Satan have a lot of links together in all kinds of historical contexts. But when you talk to one and you talk to the other, you can say that they're not at all the same entity.
Yeah, that's what I kind of was wondering is like, I don't know if it was during the Enlightenment or the Renaissance, they were saying that the aspects of Lucifer and Prometheus and Jesus were like very similar of these. They came to bring enlightenment and wisdom to man. It was like, I can see that. That does make a lot of sense. Yeah. And I'll say this, it was weird. My first interaction with Lucifer was like, I understood what people were saying, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I see what's really going on. Dude, his place was like just filled with almost like everything was perfect. And it was like, I want to be surrounded by perfect things, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not this pride, it's like, yeah, this is really good, but keep pushing yourself further. You can make it better. It's like, you're not prideful, you're just like, it's hard to explain, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's what I gathered from it, was like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah, I understand that. It's you can keep doing better. Never stop perfecting yourself.
I know what you're saying about Lucifer's place, though. Like, the only way I can think of it is like, when you look up in the sky and the sunlight is coming through the clouds and it's just perfect, it looks like a miracle happening in front of you. It's like every object, everything in Lucifer's realm is that kind of perfect and beautiful. Where it's like, how the fuck did you do all that? And that is his challenge. He's like, you just got first off, you have to believe that you can make things that are perfect. You can actually perfect yourself. And as soon as you hit, this is what Ascent is at. As soon as you hit what you thought perfection was, you see all the imperfection that you still have to work through.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I do prefer that, because even when I was reading the which was it? It was I can't say her first name, but the Miss Mason. When I was reading,
I'll tell you what, I have no idea if I'm saying her name right. For like 10 years now, I've been like talking Asenath Mason. I've only had like one voice-to-voice conversation with her, and I don't know that I asked her name, so I'm just making it up. But I think it's Asenath.
But it was impressive when she was like even talking about the whole symbol of the Ouroboros, for example, is even once you've hit the pinnacle, you keep building. You keep building. And I'm like, that I would prefer that, because you will get lazy when you get to, air quotes, the top. It's like, at the top, it's like, what is left? we are creatures who we need to do things. We don't want to just sit around and, you know, do nothing all day. We want to have purpose. And I had like when I was reading through that, my view changed, and I said like, I can respect this because it's very similar to a lot of the more practical right-handed path things I was studying, like, you know, the Stoic philosophies, for example, you know, and it's like I can see this. I can see that you're both saying very similar concepts. And even then in her book, it was like, it wasn't it might have been more left hand leaning, but it was very much of like, this is just about the ascent. It's not about a particular path. And I can really respect that. You know, someone putting aside the biases, I guess, to focus on the goal.
Yeah. Well, you know, so because we're talking about this in the context of left hand and right hand paths, but also I'm going to kind of reduce it a little bit more to the different communities in the left hand path as well, because we can see, especially lately, there's been a whole lot of fracturing. There's been a whole lot of kind of like in-group, out-group fighting, where it's like, you know, the way that people just forming cliques and forming these different groups and teaming up against each other. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If we actually take a step back from the tribal emotional impulse, we all actually kind of believe the same stuff, and we're all trying to get to the same place. So let's stop putting curses on each other. Let's stop bad-mouthing each other, and let's just start. Well, first off, it doesn't even require cooperation. This is the beautiful thing. You and I, we don't even have to. We are cooperating, but we don't have to. All I have to do is do my thing. You do your thing, and we're already in cooperation. You know, but when it gets to, I think one of the lowest states that you can get into with your I don't know, frequency vibration is the state of trying to be right. Trying to be right is really inwards pulling negative state. You're not giving any energy. You're not giving any light. You're actually sucking in within yourself, and it's just not a high vibration at all. It's a very low vibration. And so whenever we're stuck in that of like, you know, I've got to be right, and the other person has to be wrong, we're already in a mess. And that's whether we're looking at like the different communities on the left-hand path or the right-hand path, or the entire world, the entire human spiritual experience as a whole. The division is completely unnecessary, and it's not actually part of the spiritual thing. That's part of, I think, what the animal self has injected into the spiritual thing.
Yeah, I 200% agree with that, because it's even today, like, I'll be honest with you, I only use Twitter just to like promote like my book and my music, but you know, some of the people I follow, you know, they're working like going back and forth at each other, and I'm sitting there like, I'm thinking, I'm like, is this really what you want to promote? Do you really want to sit there, like, you all agree on these subjects, but because you're having like this childish spat, like, I think it was like one dude was saying, oh, you know, comics and things are for little kids, and, you know, you got people saying about, oh, but I do cartoons and I draw, and, you know, this is my profession, and they're just having these little pissing contests, and I'm like, bro, just I was just like, regrettably but unapologetically going unfollow, mute. Just, I don't got time for that bullshit. Like, what are you fighting over? Your opinion? That's ridiculous. And I see a lot of that was like, even when you mentioned you weren't going to go to the left-handed consortium because they had introduced that kind of, you know, neo-fascist stuff. And I actually, strangely enough, I found a lot of material when I was going online, and it was very like neo-fascist, and I'm like, this is very peculiar. And it was like, huh.
It's confusing. It's confusing to me how that gets mixed in with anything spiritual. Like, I mean, maybe well, even that. Like, I'm thinking, like, I can see like you got the Christian identity groups that are all Christian with it, but even that, like, I can't think of a single true, authentic spiritual path that I just don't see the place, dude. I'm gonna be honest. I've looked into this as deeply as I could without just being completely revolted, and I've looked at it going, I just don't see it. I don't see what the value is here in a spiritual system to involve. I mean, any kind of politics. Like National Socialism is an extreme one, but good God, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or what the hell. Like that's got nothing to do with spirituality. But
Yeah, no, it's mm. And I think here's what I think my personal thing is like. I think that some of that it's a kind of I don't know if propaganda is the right word, but I would probably use that was the closest one is where they say, well, if you're a Christian, you got to be on the right side, and if you're like, you're not, you're on the left side, and it's like, why is that the case? I don't understand why that's the case. I mean, because when you really kind of, if you talk about the political aspect, and you actually talk to either someone on the right or the left, if you say, what is your ultimate concern? Well, I can care about the country. Well, I care about the country. Okay, so you both care about the country. You just disagree about how to do it. I can understand that.
Well, I think all of these divisions, whether they're religious or political or whatever, I don't think that these are natural, organic emotions that people feel towards each other. I think that the masses are being manipulated to hate each other.
Oh, yeah.
That I mean, through media, through politics, through religion, that it is, as long as they can keep people divided, I think, and this is where I kind of get into conspiracy theory, I do believe that there is an evil cabal that is running the world. And I think that the more that comes out about Epstein, we're actually seeing that's the truth.
Yeah, because it was like even, what was it, the other day when you had mentioned the demiurge, I was like, dude, I was just thinking that. I was just thinking, like, because you mentioned how there's, and it's that popped in my mind when you mentioned it, and I'm like, it always seems because either way, the this concept of this demiurge is something I hear, whether it's your left hand path, your right hand path. There's this concept of there is something that is designed to prevent you, and this I kind of had a slight epiphany of it's if you were to say like, okay, this we'll say the savior or the one who brings enlightenment. If you say on the right hand path you have Jesus, on the left hand path you have Lucifer, but at the core there is just one being bringing enlightenment to people, and then you have another one that's determined to keep everyone ignorant. And I think at the end of the day, the one that every one of us sides with is the one bringing enlightenment, and the one that's standing against us is this demiurge creature. That's what I'm drawing conclusions to. I could be wrong, but
yeah. Well, I even see this when people blame the ills of the world on Satan, and I'm like, I don't know that you're actually talking about Satan here. I think you're using the wrong name for the wrong guy, because that does seem like that is the demiurgical force of division. And honestly, my concept of the demiurge is that it's a world vampire. It's vampirizing our entire planet and everything, all the living beings on it. And humans are the ones that are putting out the most energy in our spiritual worship and our rituals and stuff. And so if it can harness that, then it's got a good source of energy and power. On kind of a mythical, this is kind of like mythological. I hope it's real. I hope it's literal. Is that the gatekeepers keep showing me that this earth is being transformed right now to something else that takes it out of the grasp of the demiurge and puts it back into the hands of us, the people living on this earth. I think that was actually the original intention, was to put us here so we could become the literal gods of this planet and learn how to learn all of our godly abilities here before we, I think before we start creating our own realities. And that's been usurped by this demiurgical force that's manifested as Abrahamic religions and division in politics and everything else.
So, I want to ask you real quick because when you talk about the gatekeepers, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that I'll try to explain this the best way I think I can. There will be times that I would, I like to stargaze a lot, but there would be times that I would sit out there and I'd be like, I can see something, and I don't know what it is, but it looks. If you kind of have like an unfocused gaze, you can almost see like there are these towers or archways, and they're enormous. Like they go like just up into the sky almost, and I'm looking at that, and I can see that. I'm like, I don't know if it's a trick of the,
Dude, I know. I've seen the same thing. It almost looks like uh, highways that are going above you, like
right.
enormous fucking highways that are just stretched out like an arch above you, like in different directions. But they are. It looks like architecture. It doesn't look like. It doesn't look like. I don't know, something astral. It looks like a physical building or a physical architecture you're seeing.
Yeah, and I've mentioned those a few times to people that I kind of trust, and it's and there's several of them, and like I don't know if they're tied to like directions, but I'll see like okay in this one specific, and they stay where they are, right? And I'm saying okay, there's one over here, and if I kind of like turn my attention, okay, well there's another one over here, and it's like I turn and look around, okay, there's another one, there's like a distance, and it's like they're huge, but it's that made me think of that when you mentioned the I don't know if they're tied to the art the gates, but yeah, there's a girl I know. I do a different girl, Ashley. I do sword fighting with her, and she talks about like the gates and like the blue lights and the codes coming down. I'm like, I'll be honest, I don't know what she means when she's talking about this. I just say like, okay, but and it's not no disrespect to her. She's very knowledgeable, but it's when she talks about stuff, I have no idea. I'm not very knowledgeable.
Yeah, well, yeah. If there's no frame of reference, all you can do is be like, all you can do is absorb. So, but Abaddon started telling me this where he showed me this our planet with metal gears around it, kind of locking it in. And I was like, what does this mean? Does this mean our planet is being controlled by something? What are you trying to tell me? And he goes, I'm not trying to tell you anything. I'm showing you what's real. And I was like, what do you mean? Like on the astral plane? He's like, no, dummy. This is real, real as the room you're sitting in, as real as you are. These structures exist. There's a whole other civilization going on your planet that you're just out of tune with. And these I don't know, these travel corridors or archways, whatever these are part of it. Uh, if you've got an open field, anywhere you can find like a flat open field, go magnetically feel there's structures there. There are buildings or something around there, and you can actually go feel them and push your hands right up against the structure, and you'll feel the resistance. I've done this. I've got all kinds of empty space out here, and so I'll just go walk around and fill out these enormous buildings, and I'll go kind of walk the perimeter and map these out. It does seem like there's another technological civilization overlapping ours.
That oh my
And,
god.
and and the gatekeepers being part of that, I do think they are. They keep talking about they're returning here, they're merging our worlds, and I do think that that's part of it.
Okay, so this is actually interesting as well because there was a few times th- this happened when I was what was it? I was trying to learn to see auras, right? And this was back when I was working at the building at the industrial complex. So I would have like we like 12 712s, and every now and then I'd have like a break where I would just take a nap. And there was one time I'd be laying down and I would be it's like I'd be looking at everything, and it was like I was watching everything happen around me, but it was had this weird haze, this weird purplish green haze, and I'm watching everything around me, but I couldn't move, and I didn't realize like was I asleep? And on the that happened like maybe the third time it happened, someone was driving and I had like fell asleep air quotes, but I saw a tower and it was huge. But it wasn't like, it didn't go up to the sky, but it was large. It may have been like a 3-story tower, like a clock tower. And I saw it. I'm like, where is that? And I was like, and I could see, I knew where I was, like physically, but I was like, well, who put that tower there? But it was in this same where the sky was like this greenish purple, and I'm like, dude, am I seeing into the I'm like, dude, am I seeing into the astral world right now? Am I seeing this building? And when I like try to awake, it was gone. I was like, dude, I saw that thing. I could give you details. So like when you mentioned that, I'm like, yeah, I've seen that a few times.
So what's really getting me about that story too is the color of the sky. So I started seeing this in Las Vegas when I was maybe 19 years old, working with Lucifer really heavily. I'd look out. I'd just be out hanging out in Vegas, and I was living there at the time. And I'd look up at the sky, and I would see a flash where it would turn completely. I didn't see the green, but like a purple red. It was like a purple reddish color in the skies. Like not. It didn't look natural at all. And I'd see it for a straight like few minutes, and I'd kind of have to shake it off. If I ever tried to verify it with anybody, I'd be like, "Hey, is the sky looking purple?" And and they'd not be able to verify it. But yeah, getting these flashes. So I don't know. I mean, again, it does seem like we're catching glimpses of another world, and I do think it's a world that's merging with ours.
I ain't gonna lie. Like having some of this kind of confirmed is also really helpful for me.
Yeah. Well, like you said at the very beginning of this conversation, a good deal of what we're doing and why we're honestly a good deal of the reason I even have internet is so I can verify magic. Like I have no interest in social media. I don't care what people saw if I what I ate for breakfast. I'm interested in sharing magic and like back because I started really getting online with magic around 1999 and going into different forums and chat rooms and sharing my experiences. And it really blew me away that I'm not crazy, that I'm not making shit up, that you can actually have people verify experiences. One of the big ones is when people soul travel to each other. Like you just zip over to somebody's house and then they hit you up and they're like, "Hey, were you over here just a minute ago?" So, yes, indeed, I was. That's a really cool. But anyways, all these little validations are not little at all. They're actually huge.
Yeah, I ain't gonna. Yeah, it is. I can agree. It is kind of like therapeutic almost.
You know?
I
But there's always more questions that come up than answers. Like because like, as we're talking about this, it's like we're both aware that we're observing a very solid world that's overlapping with this one. But what does that mean? What do we do with that? I have no idea. I have been very clearly told that the next few years are gonna reveal a lot of things to us. Um,
ain't gonna lie. I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, me too. I think we are seeing. I think we're seeing the world population going absolutely insane right now as we're moving into a higher dimensional shift. I think this is what's behind the mass shootings, the crazy murder and crime rate all over the world, the wars that are going on. I think these are lower unadapted minds that are moving into a higher frequency. And yeah, and and here's where I get really hippie with it. I do think this higher frequency is one of love and cooperation, and so the forces that thrive on division are not going to be coming forward with us. At least that's what I hope. I'm going to cross my fingers for that reality.
Yeah, I mean, I I have a actual question. So you've I heard one of your live streams. You were talking with somebody about how there was I don't know if you said a shift or like a split that like we were moving from one world to a different world, and I want to kind of ask a little bit because I have heard that once before, and I understand it, but I'm wondering, like, and I understand like there's this concept of what is it? I don't know if it's multiple universes or multiple dimensions, but I think what you mean is like we were heading towards this one possible future dimension, and then something happened, and we ended up splitting into a different dimension, where that other one still exists, but we're presently in this one, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, let me grab a book real quick. I'll be right back.
All right, take it down.
All right, so
I
I
dig
started
that
noticing
gun
this.
belt. That
Oh,
gun belt,
yeah,
that
yeah.
gun belt slabs, man. I love it. What caliber is
I
that?
do too. It's awesome. Yeah, I, I, yeah. It's funny because like the things that go in my temple are interesting because it's I got that gun. But I love shooting, and so I just had I've got a 45 and a 357 that I'll take out, and I kept having just the magnetism pull. Put that on your throne. Put that on your throne. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll do it. But I'm grabbing this book here because I think this is where I've written. Oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's an. Oh no, here it is. All right. So Doomsday Clock. I've actually started calling this a Doomsday Clock. It is like the energy and tension of the entire world gets to a breaking point. It seems like everything's about to end, and then there's like a snap, and something happens, and this is a shift that takes us to a new dimension. Uh, so Oh, that's interesting. The next one's supposedly coming up in next month because I started tracking the dates on these. The first one that I noticed was September 8th, 2019. I'd started noticing, like I said, the energetic tension of the whole world will build up. And specifically on that date, I could feel it snap, and I could literally in front of me see all of reality that I could observe coming into a bubble and then popping and becoming a new reality. And this is what's talked about in the book of Revelations and talked about in a lot of different mythologies of a new heaven and a new earth. But it's happening all the time. And so I started tracking it. My next one was set to be 6/21/2023 at 12:51 a.m. I'm not sure how I got that information, but I wrote it down, so we'll see what happens on that date. But I've tracked I think 3 or 4 of these cycles of again the energetic tension building up, and then it snaps, and when it snaps and all of reality resets itself, it literally is like the matrix code is flushing itself and going back to a not back to a previous state. It's actually, I don't know, it's somehow of an upgrade where it doesn't need to deal with the same issues anymore. That's the biggest thing, especially on a personal level. I think when we personally recognize that we're going through these shifts, that those are times to decide what you want to leave behind of your own personality, your own belief systems, what reality held for you, that it all does get reset and put to a zero basis that you can actually build from.
I'll tell you what I find really fascinating about that. The lady,
The light.
excuse me, the lady who had read my palm the first time, she sent me a message. We're pretty good friends, but she sent me a message, and she said, "Hey, there's this guy he does night jousting. He's part of this group like Full Metal Jousting." And she said he's hiring people.
You're into some fun hobbies. I just gotta say that sounds cool as hell.
Oh, dude, I could tell you all the stuff I do, but so she said like, yeah, he's hiring people. I'm like, okay. So I took a chance. I hit him up, and he said like, yeah, come out to Santa Rosa County in Florida, and on this date I'll meet you. He was impressed with me because I had like a good work ethic and everything. And he's like, he says, look, do you have what is it? Do you have a passport? No, sir, but I can get one. Get one. I want to hire you. Cool. So some shenanigans happened. We were supposed to go to Canada probably next week, but because my passport I had some issues with my passport, it's going to come in June, and he says, meet with us on June 21st.
What?
So I was like,
That's awesome.
that's what when you said that, I'm thinking, because I've, like I said, I've gotten into that zone where it's like, it's like, bro, I was like, I'm moving with I'm moving with the flow now. I'm not, I'm not trying to control stuff. I'm moving with the flow. I'm just being like,
That-
be present and aware, but move with the flow.
Well, so every single thing that we interact with is an energetic interaction, and everything we're doing is some sort of ritual. Getting a passport is not just getting a passport. Getting a passport is giving yourself permission to move, to travel wherever you need to travel, to go as high as you need to go. I got it. I had a passport several, like a decade ago. It expired, and like I think 2 or 3 years ago, I got it renewed, and it really hit me. This is not just a piece of paper from the government. This is actually giving myself permission to go somewhere else in my life, and so yeah, so the fact, I think all of us take for granted the simple little things we do that are actually really magical.
That's and that's I'll tell you this because I like what you said there because this is actually another thing that I learned very recently. And this was actually something that Azazel taught me. And if bro, I apologize if I have been like hammering down on this, but I'm impressed with your level of conjuration. Like that one you created like such a powerful presence on one of your live streams. I was like, man, I could felt it. But like anyway, he was I kind of knew this on an intellectual level, but he kind of he reinforced it. It was like the physical is spiritual. And like the first lesson was like do 100 push-ups. Like, okay, and I'm sitting out there and I did it, and he's like keep going, keep going, keep going. It's like, but it's like, man, I'm feeling muscle T. He's like, no, keep going, and it's like, and I could feel like this mental shift, and it was like, okay, like I need a rest. Like do 100 squats with this weight. Okay, do 100 sit-ups, and I'm doing this back to back, and I'm feeling like my whole body is going through this. And he's like, what do you feel? And I'm like, I can feel it. I can feel it. And he says you're not pushing hard enough. You've got to push. The physical is spiritual. You know this. Apply it. And I'm like, oh. And it was like this whole revelation. So I mean, like when you mentioned that, like I feel like this is just a thing that keeps being reinforced. Is like what you're supposed to do it.
That's a total like Morpheus Neo moment of like, do you think you're breathing air right now? Do you think you're actually sweating? No, that's all just in your head. This is one of the big things with yoga. I did a ton of weight training for years. I had like every single day I'm measuring my biceps and measuring my chest and beating myself up if I didn't make enough progress. And then I got in a car accident, messed up my shoulder, and I had to just lay off of weights completely. Well, actually, my surgeon had to do surgery on my shoulder. He takes the X-rays and he goes, "Okay, so we're going to charge your insurance. Don't you worry, because this was actually technically caused by the car accident. But I'm looking at your joints and I'm telling you, you're lifting too much weight. You're pushing yourself too hard. You're wearing your body out." And I was like, "Oh shit." He's like, "Yeah, your shoulders are messed up." He's like, "Let me guess, you love bench presses." I'm like, "Yes, I do. In fact, getting my chest all nice." And he's like, "Yeah, you're fucking up your shoulders too." And so he's like, "Yeah, he goes, for at least a couple years, don't lift a single weight, and get into some yoga or something." I'm like, "Oh man, yoga really with the ladies?" So I started going to yoga classes and get into it, and I had my very first mentor was actually a yogi. He taught me some really basic yoga postures. One of them that's not so basic is doing a headstand, and I tried for about 2 years, working just about every day on trying to get into a headstand. And the moment that I actually could do it, I could pop up into a headstand and hold it for an indefinite amount of time, is when I realized it wasn't my body doing the work. That I'd actually do a little cheat where I'd go take a little erasable marker and put a dot on the wall. And then as soon as I start flipping upside down, I open my eyes and I look at that dot. Do not take your eyes off the dot. As soon as my eyes go off the dot, my body falls. It has nothing to do with my muscle. It has nothing to do with my body. Your body is just a tool of your mind. If you keep your mind focused on that dot, your body's going to do exactly what you want it to do. Same thing with basketball. I played a lot of basketball when I was in elementary school. My brother-in-law was trying out for pro. He was a college player. He would have gotten pro. He actually was offered. He was offered to audition or whatever for the Utah Jazz, but he turned it down because he was starting a family and whatnot, and couldn't. He had to choose between a family or his career, so he chose his family. And but he took all of his skills and he would teach me how to play. And he'd teach me how to make hoops. He took a piece of plywood and drew like a box on it, and had me throw the ball behind my back, under my legs, over my shoulders, all these different drills, and hit that box. But every time, no matter if I'm aiming at a box, at my teammate's hands, or at the basket, where I look is where the ball is going to go every single time. And once again, it has very little to do with what's going on with your body and more with what's going on in your mind. But and so that's the same thing with magic and everything else, is that like and manifesting any kind of goal. If you actually look at it like you're going to get it, you actually believe you're going to get it, and you don't take your eyes off of it, you're going to get it.
I love stuff like that because we several years ago a friend of mine, he does DJing, but he was also doing like a class for parkour, and he was like, hey man, I want if you're interested, like I want to hire you on as a coach, you can teach some parkour and everything. It's like, oh yeah, cool, love it. And I had always had this really hard problem with my balance, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I'll ever get this. But there was one time, and this came to me, I was like, I was holding my balance on this really high spot, and all I did was just focus on breathing. I didn't think about anything else. I didn't think about trying to keep my balance, and my balance was like the one I didn't think. My balance was like almost immaculate, but the moment I started thinking about stuff, I started wobbling. I was like, oh, I get it now. And I'll tell you, there's a really, really good book that it's called The Inner Game to Tennis. I think it's like Tim Galloway. Fantastic. He talks about like teaching people tennis, but mostly he teaches people about being in the moment, and when they don't think about it, like they're just present. Like just the skill they have is like professional grade.
Yeah, so I did some experiments with this. I've got a friend, Corey, who's really he's into Brazilian jiu-jitsu and several different forms of martial arts. And we started doing these experiments with just like myself, and this is when I was like 19. It was myself and just a bunch of other like ragtag kids around the neighborhood. And this guy got us together and started doing these hypnosis techniques on us. And the whole hypnosis was to believe yourself to be a professional mixed martial artist. And none of us were. None of us had really hardly any training. But after like maybe a 10-minute hypnosis session where we're seeing ourselves, what you do is, well, what he would have us do is see a fighter. I chose Mike Tyson because he's just the best in the world, in my opinion. And you see them, imagine how they fight, imagine how you fight, just naturally. And then you start, over this 10 minutes, you start to merge the two, where before you know it, you're moving like Mike Tyson. And then coming out of that, he'd hand us different weapons, kendo swords, rattan sticks, all kinds of shit, and he'd just start attacking us. And it was really cool because he didn't give us like, okay, now I'm going to do this. He would just, after the hypnosis, he'd just come at us full force and see how we would defend ourselves. And he's every one of us. He's like, every one of you look like you're black belts. Like, I don't know, but holding on to it. The hard part is holding on to it for more than maybe like a half hour to an hour, because the hypnosis does start to fade. I think you start to come back to your mind that doubts it and goes, this isn't possible. And because that's one of the first thoughts, specifically what sticks out in my mind are the rattan sticks, just these like small sticks that you're using. And I didn't know what I was doing. But all of a sudden it's clack, 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 clack. I'm like, that was my thought. How the hell am I doing this? I'm not able to do this. And that's when the spell starts getting broken.
I love, because that is another thing that I did notice, even because like, okay, when I was a kid, I was like, small and skinny and everything, and like, but my childhood hero at that time was like Bruce Lee. My dad would watch all the Bruce Lee movies, and he had like all the books, and maybe on some level that was like my actual first introduction because he talked about this thing called like the flowing energy, right?
Mhm.
And but I would watch the videos, and I remember that whenever like I'd have to fight like a bully or something. And I remembered like I could just do that kind of thing. I could just do. I had like dude, I had like three guys try to throw me to the ground, and I stood there. I was like so like solid. They couldn't trip me. They couldn't like move me. I was laughing. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But actually, that's been something that I've been kind of like not knowing how to hammer it down, but wanting to kind of write about and saying, look, this is human potential because I like when you think about where did we learn all of this stuff, like who was the first martial artist, who was the first magician, who was the first one is, and like how did we learn this? And I think on some level that it's like everyone has like that the kundalini and everything. I think everyone has this instinctive knowledge. They know how to do it, but there's a part of us that like doubts it and we overthink it. And
Mhm.
when I learned um, to trust whatever I was doing, it was like I didn't have to do certain. I guess I don't know if ritual is the right word, but like I'm a minimalist. Like I can't do candles and such like that. But when I've broken curses, right? There were some that I had to figure out. Like I know what to do, and it wasn't even hard. But it's like I broke it and on somebody, and it was I didn't know how to do it, but I knew how to do it. If that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like this is what every person can do, but I think there's a part that we have to trick ourselves. If you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So I took the same thing that Corey was teaching us how to do, and I kind of realized, like, in a way, I'm creating an imaginary personality that is capable of doing the things that I can't. And it's almost like Mike Tyson and me had a love baby inside my head, and that became this person I could step into. As soon as I started realizing that, after a couple of these sessions with Corey, I was like, okay, let me apply this to magic. And so I started doing basically because Corey was not into black magic at all. He did not appreciate any of my practices in this realm. And so I went on my own, and I started doing a self hypnosis using the same methods I learned from him, but imagining. And so specifically what I saw is I imagined myself as a pure satanic sorcerer, casting fireballs and lightning and just making it as like mythical as I possibly could and stepping into that persona and then hitting my rituals from there. And I'm going to be honest, that was one of the biggest breakthroughs I've had in magic. That was like when I was like 19, working with Lucifer. I wasn't sure how to see spirits. I wasn't sure how to communicate with them. And so what I had to do was create that imagined other personality that's capable of those things, and I slipped into that. And now another thing that I've learned is so if you got the ability to do scanning, which you do, if you identify a skill or a talent that you want to develop, go get close to somebody who has that skill and talent, and you're going to start absorbing it. It's just and you don't even have to have them show you anything. All you have to do is watch them do what they do and feel their energy, and you're going to start just developing it. It's nuts. I mean, yeah, I've been playing bass guitar for about a year and a half, and this is one of my secrets to actually learning how to do it is going to a concert, getting as close to the stage as I can, and inhaling the energy of the bass player.
Dude,
So
oh man, that's so awesome. So, um, okay, so I will say this is kind of a little outside. Because I kind of did the same thing. If like I got into like music production and like even doing like acoustic piano and I I had this fear when I was a long time like oh I don't know but like I kind of did that same thing where I kind of watched and I kind of like unintentionally absorbed it and I did notice that same thing because I didn't realize I was absorbing the energy, but I was absorbing the energy as well. but that is a really good idea because there's a guy, he does no joke telekinesis on like the next level, like not even joking. Dude's moving trash cans. He moved
Mm.
he just spreads his arms, two large trash cans like just move back like about 6 feet. And he's sitting up doing demonstrations of this shit, and I'm like, bro, you need to write about this. And I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, bro, like, how do you like, what is the process? And I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, going, you're doing it the wrong way. You're looking for like the step by steps, like you know how to do it. You gotta, but like you instinctively know, and it's this really weird thing, like this internal conflict of the I don't like to say the higher self, but I would say that like
Yeah.
it talks to you. Like even when people kind of talk to me, like I scan people and I get the information. People ask me for some wisdom or insight. It's not me talking, right? I'm giving out the information, but it's like there's something else talking through me, and it's a little more direct. You know what I mean? It doesn't try to like sugarcoat stuff. It just tells them.
That's actually uh, when you were saying earlier that the when you've witnessed me conjuring something forth that you can actually feel it, that you just barely hit like the secret of how I do that is I I turn my body, my voice, my actions over to that other thing. And like you said, I don't want to call it a higher self. It's not exactly that. I think the higher self is actually not a real thing. It's an amorphous goal, a lot like ascent, something that we can aim at that doesn't actually exist. Um, so yeah, but it is a matter of me not speaking the words. If I'm working out of a grimoire, I'll pop it open in front of me, and then it is a matter of just transferring of me not speaking. It's not me that's speaking, and this is like I'll have I've got a lot of friends from different religions and faiths and backgrounds, and so I'll find myself at people's homes for dinner or whatever when they're saying a prayer, and they'll ask me a lot of times to say a prayer, and so I'll just give a simple blessing on food. I don't mind invoking the name of Jesus if I'm in company of people who are of that faith, and so. But every time, like I'm just doing a blessing on the food, I open my eyes after the blessing, and everyone's crying, and I'm like, "What's going on, guys?" Like, "Oh, we can feel the spirit so strong." It's like, okay, well, and I give that question, well, how do you do that? Well, I don't do it. If I try to do it, I'm going to fail, and so I've got to shut up, get myself out of the way, and let something else take over, and then when those words are spoken, it is it is the command of the creator upon its creation.
Man, I keep saying like this. It's like I love this fascination where it's like, like just the I don't the reaffirming of like seeing how like we're doing the same thing. I'm like, okay, I can appreciate this, and I kind of, but yeah. Yeah, that is really cool. It seems like you've developed it to where it's almost like second nature, where you don't even have to think about it; it just happens.
Almost, like almost. I think what you just described is the state that I'm aiming towards, where I wake up and then just go about my day, and I'm always in the state. That's what I'm aiming for. I do have to think about it, but I have gotten to the place as soon as I make the choice to turn my attention to it. Um, it's like the little me just melts away, and then the bigger me is taking that place. Because the little me, I'm going to be honest with you, the little like mortal person that I am is usually racked with anxiety and worried about a million things and trying to control everything. But then as soon as I can catch myself and go, wait a minute, here's one big thing. If you're trying to control something you don't have control, trying to continue to control it is just going to reaffirm you don't have control. What you need to do is give up. And so that's like actually the first stage I can reach of really entering into a magical state is to stop trying to control everything, recognize, it's all going actually exactly like it should. The only thing out of place here is me. And so I've got to get myself into place. And as soon as I just make that decision and shift there, yeah, within seconds I can completely change my state and be tuned in. And it is just, I mean, literally a matter of doing it multiple times a day and being so obsessed with this. Like every every job I've ever had, like I was always excited to get home to go stare into my black mirror and figure out what's going on in the astral plane. You know, it's like everything I've ever done in this world has always just paled in comparison to magic.
Yeah, I'm happy that I'm at that point where, you know, all the stuff that I do want to do, and I do enjoy it. I won't lie, but the strange, it's like a strange realization that like it is slightly temporal, I guess, and my goal has just become straight up ascent as of now. It's like I'm not even worried about um, jobs anymore. Like you know, I'm not worried. I even said like, dude, if when I get to that point, like I'm seriously considering like, you know, I'd just go up to the freaking mountains or something and just live there. Like just be like a total like some kind of ascetic monk, just like, you know, practicing every day.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. Well, let me ask you: do you have like any kind of daily ritual that you've gotten yourself into the like habit of yet?
Um, kind of yeah. So, I for a while I was kind of like doing Wim Hof, and I've actually gotten to the point where I can hold it for like 4 minutes, and so my buddy of mine, he asked if I was doing Tumo. I had never heard of that before. I looked at that. I was like, oh, okay. And now what I'm trying to do is I guess it's kind of like this imagination where you've got like you're feeling like the heat like at the the perineum, and then just kind of like breathing into it and letting it expand and expand. Like even during the ritual, I could feel like it moving up like into my chest, and it's been like that a lot recently. Like when I'm just kind of present, I can feel like up into my chest, like just the intensity of the heat. So I'm always looking for like the spiritual weights, if that makes sense. Like the next, you know, like okay, I've done like the 10-pound weights. Now I need the 50-pound weights. You know, like the harder, difficult thing. So that's what I'm on currently.
Yeah, yeah. Do you play? Do you play with the world around you? Like, if you're sitting at a red light, will you turn it green?
I sometimes will try to do that. And it's weird. I have these. I don't. I'll just say that like they're glimpses where I have success, but then there's other times where I can't focus or I don't have like, you know, something happens to where I kind of can't if you know. I've tried to like
Yeah.
do the thing with the clouds, and it's weird. Like I'll be at work, and I like, well, there's nothing going on at work because I would be working outside, and be like, I try to move the clouds and be like making sure nobody's looking around me. It's like I don't want my, well, they think I'm crazy anyways. So it doesn't matter. But so I
Yeah.
have tried to do different things, but I will admit there's a lot of times I get like distracted from trying to do like too many things at once, and I learned that was my weakness, like not focusing on something. But
Yeah.
I have tried different things. There was one time I was just out and about, and I was just doing like I was just doing like some Tai Chi work, and next thing I knew, like I'm just being surrounded by animals, and I'm just standing. I'm kind of like consciously aware of them, and they're all just kind of like right there by my feet, looking up at me, and everyone's watching me, like just stand there holding this position, and they're like, I'm just surrounded. Like all the animals are just chilling out under my feet, not fighting, not trying to do anything. They're all just like, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just breathing." But if you've got
but that, but that, but that is the thing. Is like when you're trying to do it, you're not going to do it. It's a matter of like, okay, so I do a morning Falun Gong meditation. I just go out in the backyard and Falun Gong is similar to Tai Chi. It's like Tai Chi light. It's It's got just a few different postures that you move through. And so I'll do those. And usually at the first like 3 to 5 minutes, I'm distracted. I'm thinking about things I've got to do that day. I'm just kind of in my human brain. And then sometimes at some point after that, I just kind of give up and relax into it, and then I start feeling the energy, and that is when the crows will come around me, the wind will start blowing. Usually the wind starts blowing pretty intensely as I get into any kind of outdoor meditation, but as soon as I think to myself, I am making the wind blow, it stops. And I think that's because I've put a barrier up there between myself and the wind. The myself and the world around me, that these are two separate things and I'm trying to control it. And so if I can just get myself out of that trying state and just go back to breathing, and then the wind starts picking up again. It is this really crazy thing of like, if you're trying to, it just doesn't seem to work. As soon as you withdraw trying, it's almost like when you do the same thing detached from the outcome, you're going to get the results. Yeah, as long as like, it doesn't matter what the actions or the behavior that or even the thoughts that you're having about it. If you're attached to the outcome and it has to be that way, and you're trying to control it, you don't get there. If you have to make that cloud disappear or move, it's not going to happen. But if you just observe your reality without that cloud and release it, the release is a big part of it. It's like, and I actually feel it as an exhale. I'll exhale. And let go of whatever that tension is that says that I have to control it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. And that's kind of like that is something I did kind of notice as well. Like, this may sound strange, but back like what was it, 2016, I think, that was when I started that thread on the Bald forums, like trying to like practice scanning. I would be like, I worked 2 jobs, and I would be like driving around delivering pizzas and everything, and I'd look at my phone and be reading like, oh, someone wants me to scan them. I'm sitting out there and I'm just driving and doing it at the same time, and because you get to that point where like driving is just so natural, like you don't think about it. And I was at that point where the scanning was so natural, I didn't even have to think about it. I'm just sitting out there like this, like typing in and saying like this, and this. And I got the good. Even then, I got good feedback. But I noticed like there was no intense trance focus. It was just relaxed effort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even with like the whole changing stoplights thing. I was sitting at a stoplight with my daughter. She was she's 18 now. She was like maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 years old. She's sitting in the back seat in a car seat. And I'm stopped at a red light, and she's all, "Why are we waiting, Dad?" I'm all, "Well, the light's red." She goes, "Well, why don't you make it green?" I'm all, "Well, because it's I just gotta wait for it." She goes, "You don't have to. You can make it green if you want, Dad." And I'm like, God, kid, are you here to be my guru in this life or something? All right. So so at that point, and that this is actually like the first time I really started consciously playing with this. I just imagined that the light was already green, and imagined I was driving forward, and I actually like matched the emotion with it of just like the slight emotion of I'm moving rather than waiting, and then specifically just let it go, look away from the light, bring my attention to something else, and the light changes. That is one of the keys though with any of these manifestations, whether you're trying to cloud burst or anything else, is you do the work, and then you've got to distract your mind, look at something else, and then the next time you look up, that cloud's not there anymore. But as long as you're staring at the cloud, for the most part, as long as you're staring at the cloud, it doesn't disappear. I think with enough practice and getting out of your way, losing attachment, you can make it vanish in front of your eyes. My daughter's able to, but I mean, she's been doing this for her whole life without any resistance. So, yeah. But for the most part, that is the key. And even with any kind of magic that you set it and forget it. You set it and then you look away. But bro, I have got to let you go. I've got a meeting I've got to get onto. But it has been awesome chatting with you, and we got to do this again.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, hit me up anytime. If Thursday, Friday is good for you, just let me know. I really do appreciate you coming by. Oh,
yeah.
What's your next project? You said, was it like a warding book you're working on, or what's your next project?
Yeah. So This month I've got my what's it called? Dang it. Conjure Necrodemonic Sorcery that's coming out with a book on necromancy with Edgar Cavall that's coming out this month. And then after that, then the project that's going to be coming out is Protection Magic, a self-defense spell book with Maggie Moon and Zerafina Angelus and myself. And so I specifically handpicked those two magicians to work with on this book because all three of us have survived every curse that could be thrown at a person. All three of us, we pissed off all the wrong people or whatever, and I saw that I actually got to see what each one of us was doing to protect ourselves, and I was really impressed. I'm like, the fact that we all made it out of the swamp alive says enough. But then I started comparing notes with Maggie and with Zerafina as I'm like, hey, we've got curses being thrown at us. What do we do? And started seeing the genius stuff that these ladies came up with. So that's our next big project, and that'll be out this summer.
Cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. All right, bro. I do appreciate your time. And you take care of yourself. All right.
You do the same. Thanks. It's an awesome conversation. I look forward to next time.
See you, bro.
All right. Well.
Well, guys, I waited for a couple of years, and we finally managed to be able to talk with EA. So I really do appreciate how you can actually talk to someone like that. And it's nice to have such a degree of humility to a person who, despite all of his effort, doesn't have like an overly inflated ego. I can respect that a lot. Oh, let's see. So we gotta know. Dear why your book ban is missing on reference and is the most appropriate entity for baneful work concerning Goetta. Okay, so I'll just Plippy. I'm sorry, I can't. I'll just call you Della if that's okay. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this. If I can copy it, if I can. Go to channel add as moderator. Can I copy this? Okay, copy this. I'm just gonna say, all right, I'm gonna copy this, post it on the Discord so he can answer that directly. Okay, thank you all so much, and yeah, I'm really happy about this meet. Hopefully, we'll be able to have some more folks on and talk to them. All right, you guys have a good week. See ya.